Janie, for the minutes, we're called to order at 7:03 p.m.
Okay.
And taking a look at our agenda, first item is additions and corrections to the agenda. Kathy, you and I discussed the possibility of adding a discussion about staff compensation for vaccine volunteering.
I think that's, if we can get that done tonight, that'd be great.
Sounds good. So we'll add that to new business. Okay.
Do we have a quorum?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
We've got 6 of 7.
Oh, okay.
Only person we're missing right now is John, I believe.
And Matt, I think, as well.
And Matt, you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I talked to Matt earlier today, so I know he's planning on being here. But 5 is still a quorum.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll add that to the agenda for new business. Unless there's anybody else that would like to chime in with an addition correction for the agenda. Not hearing any, then that takes us to opportunity for public to address the board. Oh, here's Matt. So Martha, Liza, Jillian, Katie, you are public this evening. Do you have any address to make?
No,
Good.
I do not.
Just here for the company as usual.
All right. On that note, then, since we don't have any comments from the public, that takes us up to our first item on the agenda for business, which is the approval of the minutes of the last meeting on February the 16th, 2021. I will bring up the packet here.
I think they're okay. I read them.
Yeah.
If there are no questions or corrections, I would look for a motion to approve.
I so move.
I second.
Okay, motion from Stroh, second from Meyerhoff. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. And then that will take us to the always thrilling financial reports. Okay. So first item that I've got here. You can't see it, but I'm shifting between tabs to look at my notes on the screen, which is why I'm getting myself a little bit lost. First item that I have here to draw your attention to in the financial reports is the property tax revenue, which I've highlighted here at the top of page 4A, 1 of 6 on the revenue and expenditure report. I had thought a week or two ago that we were closer, that we'd gotten another dollop here that had put us within a few $1,000s. What in fact was happening is that I got tripped up, unfortunately, by the lag between the tax revenue funds being gathered and submitted to the village, and then there's a delay from between then and when they get when they show up in our Illinois funds bank account. And because they'll show up in bites and chunks coming from the state as gathered funds and then get deposited as big chunks, the numbers don't always match between the two until you add them up to reconcile them. But the long and short of it is, you know, I have talked to Bettina off and on throughout the week here, kind of going over this to get her thoughts, her opinions on it. We are still about 24,000 short of where we had projected to be. That is the same as what the village is looking at for all of its assorted funds where it levies property tax as well. Everybody's down about this 2.5%. And overall, including the library, the village funds in total are short 110,000 right now in property tax revenue. So,
So they're not picking on
ordinarily,
us.
what's that?
They're not picking on us.
Correct. Ordinarily, this would be quite a cause for alarm, but with the 60-day and the unusual year that we've got, there's still a reasonable chance that we'll get a chunk more. Regardless, we've managed the funds very conservatively this year and tried to be very careful and not only not create a situation where we had to draw on reserves, but also to still allow ourselves to be able to do the essential projects, some of which we'll be getting to later in the meeting, that need to be done this fiscal year, so that we don't end up behind the 8 ball on those as well, with starting to get capital projects stacking up, more of them in a year than we'd planned because we weren't able to tackle them this year.
Art, last year, we were a little bit short. You were trying to figure out what went, some numbers between us and the village. Was it more or less than this 2.5%?
Oh, it was a lot less. It was 2,000 or 3,000, I think, at the end.
Okay. So hopefully there's some more coming in.
Yeah, and I think there's a reasonable chance that we should be. We usually get some funds that arrive in January, early February, and if you work that out 60 days after that, then it's reasonable to expect that we'll see something, hopefully enough to get us pretty close to the 987.
So Eric, this is the 12 or 13,000 we discussed in finance.
Yeah, that was, as I said, the numbers aren't exactly the same between what we're alerted that we're receiving and what ends up being deposited, because they get usually lumped together for deposit.
Okay.
So I was off a bit. I would have preferred to have been off a bit the other direction.
Right.
And there to have been more there than I had realized was deposited, but unfortunately not.
Okay.
But I wanted to be certain I was clear on it, which is one of the reasons I've been talking a lot with Bettina this week, as far as what we've got going on.
Well, like we said, our overall experience has been good to date, and given the transactional history of the area, we should remain optimistic. So we still have time.
Yeah. It's just the waiting isn't fun, I think, ultimately, in the end of the day. But I think we'll end up with most all of it there.
Mhm.
Any other questions on the property tax revenue? Otherwise, I'll segue on to the next item I have to highlight, which is better news. Down here, that we received $6,478 in Naperville impact fees. So these actually have money that it doesn't have any relation to Naperville. The Naperville is actually the name of the type of impact fee. It's type of impact fee that's levied on builders constructing in certain situations, and the idea being that it is to help contribute to the need for expanding infrastructure and services within the community when construction is happening. So they're unpredictable. We don't know when we're going to get them. I think the last couple of years we had determined when we were looking at it in the finance committee, we hadn't gotten anything the last two, and then 3 years ago had gotten a fair chunk. And I learned for Bettina earlier this month that we're getting that 6,478. So that is a pleasant surprise. And certainly helps even out any shortfall that we might have to deal with. If we get pretty close in terms of the property tax revenue, then we'll end up as a net positive there.
Surprised there's been that much development going on in the village. I can't say I've noticed a lot that would generate that sort
You know,
of.
I hadn't
but
really thought I had either. I know the real estate market's been very active, but
this is for new development, right? New construction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So. Figures can't
Okay.
be choosers.
Yeah, I opted not to argue with Bettina about it. It seemed, where am I going here? Here we are.
Eric, is there any way you can enlarge these numbers from your end?
Let me see. That better?
Yeah.
Is it
much better, thank
zooming
you.
on your screen as well, or is
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
no,
is.
it's-
Okay,
Oh,
good.
wow.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you.
okay? So the next number that I want to draw attention to is the 14,000. That's a summary for capital equipment here that we spent this past month. You can see, looking at the other column here, which is for the same month last year, that is more than we usually spend. And this is these lines are mostly materials. So it's right from the top there: adult nonfiction books, adult fiction books, juvenile nonfiction books. And the reason there for the divergence in expenditure is simply that, after May 1st, when the fiscal year started, it took a while for us to get back up and running and being able to purchase, because we needed to find ways to receive materials again and process materials and catalog materials without, at that time, having anybody in the building. And we found some great workarounds for that. I can't say enough about how our cataloger, Lara Leaf, sorted that out, but it took some time. And even then, we kind of restricted what we were getting to just the essentials for a while, because it was not a system that was going to accommodate a ton of stuff. So the net result is that coming into the end of the fiscal year, we are have less funds expended than we ordinarily would in those lines. So we're catching up a little bit. So that's what the difference there between the 2 years represents. And my last item to draw attention to is down at the bottom here, at the bottom line, looking at all funds, so all revenues, all expenditures, and it's not going to let me highlight just the column. Oh well. We've got a 1,002,631 that we have received in all revenues, and 795,484 with expenditures that have happened, which is a net difference of 207,146 to the good. So what that means is that, looking here at the end of the fiscal year, that we've got the prospect ahead of us of, fingers crossed, a reasonably soft landing for the fiscal year. So if we, as would be expected for March and April and the end of a fiscal year, do 70,000 for total expenses in March, and then 50,000, which would be a pretty high estimate for April. That would give us still a solid 87,000 balance there, which is good, because we do have some capital expenditures that we're going to want to try and tackle here this fiscal year, so that we don't end up carrying those necessary purchases over to bog down future budgets, so that we'll be able to avoid getting behind the 8 ball, not only in terms of that we'll still be adding to the general reserve. We won't have to pull from it, but we'll also be able to stay on top of our capital replacement plan without falling behind on that either, which is all to the good. So that is my finance report. Any questions?
So this, Eric, if we assume that this assumes that we're not going to get any more money from tax stuff, revenue, and things like that.
If we, well, digging into the 207,000, I think for me the big takeaway there is that if we don't get any additional tax revenue, we're still positioned for a soft landing.
Yeah. Okay.
So that is what this number assumes.
Yeah.
It assumes just what we've got and nothing else.
Eric, my only concern with focusing on that 207 is we're looking at year-to-date expenditure numbers. So, I really think it's more relevant for us to be looking at the year-to-date revenues, funds received, if we are not expecting any additional tax revenues. I don't think that. I still think we should have reasonable faith that we'll get the balance of our tax revenues, but we want to see we should be assessing that with our forecasted expenditures. So yes, I do have comfort that it's 207 and not negative, but I'm not overly comfortable with that.
Yeah. The 80,000 total expenditures this year's a little on the high side. March, we're already starting to wind down a bit our expenditures. I would expect 70 to 75,000 total for March, and then April, we generally try to avoid any expenses as much as possible in April, just to make the end of the fiscal year as simple as possible. Anything that ends up in being ordered in April, if it arrives after the start of the new fiscal year, then really it has to be charged there. So generally speaking, it's best and most efficient to just try and avoid much expenditure there in that month if we can. So that month usually comes in 40 to 50,000 as a result, lower than any of the other months of the year. So I would pretty comfortably say that we could expect in the neighborhood of 120 to 130,000 yet in monthly expenses. So you're absolutely right. You have to, in taking a look at that 207,000, you've got to factor in that we would be still needing to expend that from the general funds.
Yeah, and my concern, just going back to the finance meeting for the benefit of the rest of the board, is just if we have these sort of implicit or target transfers to reserve, I was comfortable with where we were coming out of that meeting, and maybe want to put a pin in this for later, but any decreases in tax revenues are going to dollar for dollar flow down to that reserve transfer, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's $12,000 projected lower right now than just given the tax latency.
We should still be able to meet with what we've got on the table. We should still be able to meet or exceed what we had anticipated and budgeted putting into general reserve.
Okay. All right. Well, that gives me confidence.
So the funds are there. Short version.
Okay.
I would still very much like to see those remaining property tax funds arrive. As you noted, just the way that things fall out the end of the year budget, those will be essentially anything property tax wise we receive from here on out will basically be adding to that amount that we put into general reserve at the end of the year. And I prefer to see that a higher than a lower number.
Okay, so you're saying as it stands right now, even if we do not get any more tax revenues, we are going to exceed. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Should be neighborhood of 20 to 25,000 as it currently stands. And then if we get additional tax revenue, it would add to that total.
And 20 is sort of the rough target.
Yep, that was what we had budgeted to put into reserve.
Thank you.
As the nucleus, and then try and find ways to create efficiencies and add to that. Good questions. Okay. Any additional questions? Not hearing any, I would look for a motion to approve.
I
Motion
so
approved.
move.
All right, since it's finance, we'll go with a roll call vote.
We need a
Trustee
second.
Brockett,
We need a second.
Second,
I'll second.
Oh,
There you
John,
go.
is that John?
yeah.
Tricia, I believe you said yes.
Tricia?
Trustee Brockett,
Maybe she needs to
Sorry, can you hear
unmute.
me?
Oh,
Yep.
there you are.
okay. Did you vote?
Yes, yeah. Did you hear
Excellent.
me?
Sorry, I lost you there. Trustee Hayes,
Aye.
Trustee Heinzelman,
Aye.
Trustee Church,
Aye.
Trustee Meyerhoff,
Aye.
Trustee Stroh,
Aye.
Trustee Zoudy.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. And that will take us down to the checks and the check report. I will leave this zoomed in if that works. I know it's a little bit broader report. Is that all right? Everybody see everything?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, I've got 4 checks that I want to draw attention to here on the report, and then I'll look for any questions anyone might have. The first one I want to highlight here is the J&R lock and safe. The 954 there was the replacement for a pin that broke in the front door. When they're locked, there's a pin that goes down into the floor plate to seal it in place. That broke and needed to be replaced. J&R is a new locksmith company that we've been working with. The village works with them and has been very happy. So it's been good partnership thus far.
So is that $954? Is that just for the pin, or does that include the labor to install it?
Oh, that's mostly labor.
Oh, okay.
Because to install that, then they had to take the door, open the door up,
Yeah.
and get it in there. And it's a long pin that's inside the frame of the door.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't getting a gold pin.
Just gold.
Nope.
plated.
Nope. Oops, highlighted the wrong one. Second check I wanted to draw attention to is the $250 to the Algonquin Area Public Library. This does not, in fact, relate to a super expensive interlibrary loan that we needed to pay for someone having lost, thankfully. It relates actually to a partnership for a series of 9 Zoom programs. The total cost of the series is $9,000. Algonquin Library coordinated a bunch of area libraries going in together to pay for the full series so that all the patrons at these libraries will have a chance to participate in them. This is one that Jillian had coordinated our participation in. So very exciting. Honestly, this is the sort of collaboration I would love to see continue after COVID, just because prior to Zoom and being able to have things, a program online and then viewable so broadly, there would have been no way to have done a partnership like this. So the next check that I have to highlight, which is also a programming and outreach related check, partly I think I just like the name, is Fly Pelican Fly. Outreach supplies, and this is for the rights to a licensing company. So it's the rights to show a documentary called The Long Shadow at the library, which from everything I've read is a really well done documentary. It's on the ongoing and long repercussions of racial segregation as well as slavery in the United States. So that is what that check represents. And the last one that I am very excited to draw attention to is from our friends, oops, I went too far, at Granite Telecommunications. This is our new phone company. So you can see over on the right that the cost of the check is $311, which is amazing. The last checks that we had from Access One, our previous vendor, they were getting up into the neighborhood of 3 times that amount on a pretty reliable month-to-month basis, as that cost creep and just kept rolling forward. So this is much better. Even if there ends up being a credit in there, I do imagine that we're still going to be looking at a monthly bill there that should be $200 or $300 less a month, which is going to be great. So the service is working good, which is important as well. Doesn't matter if it's cheap if it doesn't work. So those are the checks that I had to highlight. Are there any questions on any of the other checks?
Didn't we still have a check payment to Access One? Was that just a vestige amount? I don't recall if it was an actual amount.
Do we have one up there?
Yeah. Oh, it's like, yeah, I see at the top.
Yeah, there it is.
Like, oh, never mind. Is that just like just clearing out the account, I guess, right?
Yeah, just for $1.33. So that would have been, settling a
Not
balance.
meaningful. Sorry. I saw the name, didn't see the amount.
No, that's, yeah.
Eric, is there a contract for with Granite then? Is that like a 12 or 24 month or
24 month?
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Other questions? No questions, Cal?
Nope, no questions.
Okay. In that case, then I would look for a motion to approve.
Is this where you have to name the number of checks or something like that? The check
Oh,
number?
yes. Yes. So it would be a motion to approve. Let's see, checks 14679 through 14685 and 14687 through 14702.
Well, I so move.
Second.
All right, motion from Cal and second from Matt. And finance again, so we will go through with a roll call vote. Trustee Brockett,
Sorry, I don't know why it's not getting me the first time.
no worries. Trustee Hayes,
Aye.
Trustee Heinzelman,
Aye.
Trustee Church,
Aye.
Trustee Meyerhoff,
Aye.
Trustee Stroh,
Aye.
Trustee Zowdy.
Aye.
Motion carries. Excellent. Okay. That will take us up to, I can stop sharing for this bit since there isn't anything to share. Takes us up to the committee reports. There were 2 committees that met this past month. Those were Finance and Human Resources. Let's see, Finance. Bill, that's you as the committee chair.
Yeah. Well, we met and discussed the budget, and I think you've got that down as an item and final reading in the section 9.
Mhm.
Do you want to cover? Should we cover that when we get to that point, Eric?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. And then we also discussed the fact that we were awarded that grant. And I forget what the exact name was but it was about 100,000 for capital projects. So we're going to investigate. Eric was going to check back in to see where those funds might be available. They'd be able to use them for capital projects for next year.
I've reached out to Senator Morrison's office regarding the availability of the funds. I believe it's the Rebuild Illinois
Yes.
was the name of the bill.
Yep.
Would it cover our parking lot?
It could potentially, yes.
Yep.
Good.
Okay, and then finance would be Janie.
Well, we met to discuss, Eric, your evaluation. And Tricia had volunteered to put together an electronic survey with all the bells and whistles and dashboards and everything that I'm just amazed that you youngsters know how to do, because that's a programming language that I am completely out of sync with, but I do appreciate it, and it's wonderful. And I think have you gotten feedback from everybody, Tricia?
Yeah, before you give me too much credit, I just went online. I didn't create it myself. I'm not that good either.
I wouldn't even know
But,
how to steal something like that. So
yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for participating. So far, I do have a late flowing response. So I have 12 responses that I'll resend out to the committee probably tonight after the meeting. So
terrific. So our plan is to meet again and go over those responses. And I think that we're on the timeline for getting this done. Are we not, Eric? I don't have that
Yes.
timeline in front of me
Yep.
right now, but
We're following it to a T.
good.
So
good.
we're spot on where we plan to be.
That's for HR, that's the big task on a yearly basis, is to do Eric's eval.
I think it's the first time ever we've been on time with it.
We're not done yet. We're close.
Yeah.
Thanks to Tricia, no thanks to me. I only said I would head this committee if everybody else did the work. So between Kathy and Tricia, we're going to be in good shape.
It was a great instrument. Thank you, Tricia.
I'm glad it worked for everybody.
Okay. And then we'll take a quick look here. Do we have any reports from any of the other committees that did not meet?
Well, do you want to do building your grounds now or save it to new business? I guess we can save it for new business.
What have we got? Remind me what we've got with
Oh,
building and
I'm
grounds.
sorry. No, wait, that's HR.
Yes. Okay. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only other thing I should say is that HR wanted to tried to get a time to meet, and we couldn't get agreement on Zoom, so we're gonna take up a matter shouldn't take more than 5 minutes during this meeting. That's it.
And worst case, the HR committee will need to meet within the next couple of weeks here regarding the director's evaluation as well. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah, but this
can
other
always
issue
tackle it
is a
then.
little more time sensitive that we'd like to get resolved tonight, so.
Good.
That's true. Okay. So on that note, then we'll move to new business. And the first item under new business is a resolution of thanks. And the resolution of thanks is for a staff member who unfortunately couldn't be with us this tonight, but who is very grateful for the opportunity to serve the library and the community for so many years, and that is Carol Carter. So let me get to the right spot in my packet here, and then I will read that for the record. There we go. Okay. So resolution number 1 for the year 2021. Whereas Carol Carter has been an essential member of staff since April of 2005, and whereas Ms. Carter has led adult programming at the Lake Bluff Public Library since October 17th, 2007, and whereas the library has since then offered 1,477 adult programs with an attendance of 17,865, of which Ms. Carter has led approximately around 1,300 of those programs personally. And whereas Ms. Carter's grace under pressure, service skills, and research abilities have regularly been on display, whether in or out of a program, and whereas Ms. Carter provided excellent collection management for adult nonfiction, large print, adult audio, and adult video for the library, in addition to her programming responsibilities, and whereas Carol Carter will be stepping down from her position as head of adult programming as of April 1st, 2021. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Library Trustees as follows. The Board of Trustees hereby recognizes and thanks Carol Carter for her hard work and dedication in support of Lake Bluff and its library. I would add to the text here that Carol, for all intents and purposes, really built adult programming at the library. That we didn't really have much to speak of in terms of adult programming prior to her stepping into the position. It wasn't something we'd really done, and she worked tirelessly to build that service. And the first year that we had recorded numbers there in 2007, 2008, I believe we had something in the neighborhood of 950 for total attendance for the whole year for many programs. And then the last year that we completed, which was 2019, 2020, which even though it was cut short, even though it was abbreviated, we still cleared over 3,000 for attendance. So it's a, programs that are now well established, very much followed by members of the community. We now frequently have programs that have enough attendance to really fill our programming room down in the Spruce. And yeah, that is all a credit to Carol.
You know, when you see those numbers in the aggregate, that's really impressive. I mean, I knew she was doing a stellar job, but that's amazing. It really is.
Unfortunately, a very good program that's coming up, Fly Girls. It's happening at the same time that the League of Women Voters is having their panel discussion for people running for office in Lake Bluff, which includes people running for library trustee. So I talked with Carol about that. She had no way, absolutely no way of knowing that there was going to be a conflict because she had scheduled this program long before the League of Women Voters scheduled their program. But it is going to cut into, I think, her audience that night. I know at least there's going to be one less because I signed up for the program, but I feel duty bound to listen to the people who are going to be running for office in Lake Bluff.
There's always going to be conflicts no matter what you do.
Yeah, because we don't have a community calendar. And if, you know, if everybody could get together, everybody from Gorton to Lake Forest to the library to the 2 history centers, if everybody could get together, they could establish a calendar where there might still be conflict once in a while, but there wouldn't be as many conflicts as there are now. But apparently they can't do that.
Sounds like an opportunity for some enterprising person.
Indeed.
So Eric, you
Okay.
need a signature from me on this, is that correct?
I will need a signature on this as well as on the actual certificate itself.
Okay.
Eliza has put one together for Carol.
Okay, well, I will take care of that as soon as I'm back. I'll
Eric,
give you-
Carol is still going to be employed by the library, right? She's just stepping down as program director?
Yes. So she's stepping down from a full-time position to a part-time one, and she'll continue to assist on occasion with the adult programming, and also she'll continue with her collection development responsibilities.
Okay.
So I would, unless anyone has any questions or thoughts, look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
I second.
Is that John and Cal?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Excellent. And I will have a copy printed out along with the certificate, which should be ready by tomorrow. And I'll have those in the folder in the usual place for signing, Kathy. But you're still out of town, so I suppose it doesn't,
Yeah.
not a rush.
There's no way there's no way we can sign these things electronically?
I don't have electronic signing for certificates.
Okay. Okay, well, as soon as I get back, we'll do it. Carol, just let her know that that's why they're
Mhm.
having nothing delivered in time.
Yep. Sounds good. And we'll need a signature from you too, of course, Janie. So, okay. Moving on then to our next item of business, which is our comprehensive remote local area network management agreement with Computer View Incorporated, CVI. So when we had last renewed our contract with CVI, we had determined that really we were getting up to a point where we wanted to bid that out again. Not because of any issues or anticipated issues with CVI, but because all of our major contracts, the library tries to bid out periodically to make sure that the service is being received as affordably and as efficiently as possible. So 2020 having been a very special year, the opportunity to do a lot of bidding in general has not been great. We've been incredibly busy just, working on reformatting and reinventing what the library does so that we can stay available and relevant during a pandemic world and during the lockdowns. And just going out to bid in general, fairly complicated, challenging to do various of the meetings, as well as any sort of a walkthrough to bring different vendors in to look through the equipment. We did it when we needed to with our phone system, but it was complicated. With the contract with CVI, I think better part of valor, since it's a vendor that we are not dissatisfied with, it's just part of our regular schedule for putting contracts out to bid. I'm strongly recommending that we go ahead and renew them for another year, which is what I've included a proposal for in the packet, and then come back and come back at this next fiscal year when things should be much more normal. And additionally, during that next year, we've got the technology committee up and going again. Technology committee's first meeting is going to be tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. And this is definitely an area there where I would love to get input from that technology committee as it gets up and running. So my recommendation then, let's renew for the next fiscal year, and then take that time to get the tech committee involved and do a good and thorough job bidding out that contract.
Sure.
Any questions?
Kirk, we're not required to, we're not running afoul of any requirements, are we, with this? Just as we know?
No.
Okay.
Bid needs to be over $25,000. That's the number where you have to go through a formal bid process.
Okay.
Where you've got to post it on the website for 30 days, and then you've got to do a public bid opening. And it's a whole exciting thing. But the total here is not that high.
Okay.
It is over my $5,000 signing limit. So it is a matter of discussion for the board.
Thanks.
Hey, Eric, two quick questions about this. What was the duration of the original agreement, and is there any fee increase for this 1-year extension?
Yes, there is a fee increase. Let me bring up my information here. Oh. No, too far. Okay. Looking at the contracts portion here, computer services, the 13,390 is what we were contracted with CVI for this year. The new amount is listed in the contract. Pretty confident I recall the full number, but if I try and work just from memory rather than looking at what's in front of me, then I'm going to have transposed a number or something.
Should be near the beginning, I would think.
Should be.
That's,
Did I miss it?
I think it referred to an exhibit.
In the exhibit?
Yeah, try exhibit A. You were going fast, but I thought I saw a reference to the exhibit.
Okay, that would be. Ah, there we go. So 14,240. The main difference in the two contract years is that we did add some hardware, which was the laptops. We had also parted way with some of the desktops that were the public access computers, but presently, because we're in transition, we do still have a couple of those that are up. So we have more hardware than we did last year, which is one of the main items that factors into what the contract comes out to.
Thank you, that's helpful. And do you recall what the original term or duration of the first contract? Is it always a year? It's renewed every year?
It is usually 2 years. So that's usually what we sign up for. You know, we've generally only done the 1 year when we want to potentially put the contract out to bid the next year, which we have done in the past. CVI has been with us actually through a few bidding cycles at this point, where they came in previously as the lowest responsible bidder. So it's a company that we've worked with, and I'm pretty comfortable recommending that we just, you know, go with them for another year and you know, then go through our regular bid.
Great, thank you. It's helpful.
Good question. Any other questions related to the contract with CVI? If not, then I would look for a motion to approve.
I so move.
And second? Okay, motion from Stroh and second from John Heinzelman. Since it is another item that relates to funds being expended, we'll go through a roll call vote. Trustee Brockett.
Aye.
Trustee Hayes.
Aye.
Trustee Heinzelman.
Aye.
Trustee Church.
Aye.
Trustee Meyerhoff.
Eric, should the motion specify the amount?
That is a good observation. Yes.
If we could amend that motion for a certain amount of money, 1,400 something.
So specifically, the motion would be to approve the 1-year contract with CVI for land service for $14,240.
Okay, I so move.
I so second.
Okay.
Oh, and
Okay.
aye.
Trustee Brockett. Tricia.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Janie.
Aye.
And Kathy.
Aye.
Cal Stroh.
Aye.
And Matt Zowdy.
Aye, excuse me.
All right, carries unanimously. Excellent. Okay. Then the next item up on the agenda is another technology related item. And that is 3 separate quotations for electronic pieces of our local area network that are scheduled for replacement. We had scheduled to replace these in this fiscal year. We'd budgeted to expend $40,000, and in total, the three bids, the three quotes that we have here from CVI come in at just under that. And what they are is at the start, first one we have is for the power distribution unit, which is part of the virtual server setup that we have downstairs. We also then have a bid for the replacement of the virtual servers themselves and a switch replacement. So those are the three items. I did also get a quote for a bunch of other items that we need to have replaced in the next year or two, so that we've got quotes on hand and we can kind of start scoping out what those replacements will look like. The replacement with the servers is fairly straightforward. It's newer, more efficient versions of what we've got in place. Some of the other ones that we've got coming up in future years are a bit more involved. One of them, for instance, is that we do need to take a look at and upgrading our wireless network around the library, and that won't be one that'll be a straight replacement. So there'll be a bit more thought on some of the others, but these are fairly straightforward. So any questions on these? Matt, I know I'd sent the bits to you ahead of time. It didn't sound like you had anything that really jumped out at you as a huge question mark.
Yeah, there were no red flags here for me, but in fairness, some of this hardware isn't something that I could easily give you a cost assessment on, especially once we're getting down into like switches and power modules. So if we want a more exhaustive assessment, we could table this and cover it tomorrow night in the technology committee meeting, but prima facie, nothing is a red flag here at all.
Yeah, the only option that I think that would be potentially on the table with looking at these would be if we wanted to go with a straight online hosting in the cloud rather than having the servers actually physically on site. And we did look over what that might look like with our folks at CVI, and I am asking Roxy to work up a quote, but it does sound like that would be an option that would end up being more expensive, just in terms of what we would need to host, as well as the software requirements that we would still need to meet as far as what we need to put on those virtual servers, not virtual, cloud-based servers. So
that was the diligence that I wanted to explore initially. So if we've satisfied that, I have no concerns with this.
I'm comfortable recommending approval at this point. I would, and I've kind of kicked this back and forth. I would, if I had my druthers, I would really rather discuss it a bit more, but there is a certain amount of lead time as far as ordering the equipment that we need to give. Once we get the quotes signed and returned, it usually takes about a month. And I do strongly feel that we don't want to get behind on our capital replacement project as a side effect of the weird year that we've had. I want us to stay on top of that. And, I'm relatively confident that when we get the numbers for that, cloud-based system, that it won't end up affecting the final as far as what we do. So kind of weighing options there, and I think better part of valor is going to be moving forward and making certain that we get the project done while we have the funds allotted.
The only caveat on the quotes is, you know, it doesn't include taxes, insurance, shipping, delivery, all, you know, all the fine print. So it just ensuring that that's not a substantial up cost once we put this in place.
It will not be. These are intended to be definitive quotes. So as far as the taxes, as a tax exempt organization, we shouldn't see any taxes on anything that we would be purchasing. The shipping, I don't quite follow how exactly they work it out, but CVI has an agreement in place with HP, and for however that is set up, they buy quite a bit of hardware for us and for the other libraries that they work with, and that seems to include shipping because it doesn't show up on any of the invoices for here or any of the ones that we've seen previously for other materials. That's a good question. Actually, I've been looking at these so often over the years for different things that it hadn't occurred to me that those don't that the shipping doesn't show up.
And then the other questionable thing would be insurance. You know, is there insurance? Is it an ongoing thing? I don't know.
I believe the insurance, we've never insured the servers separately. Like everything in the library, it's covered under the umbrella policy that we have with the, and I'm trying to remember my acronyms.
No, as long as
IRMA.
it's under the umbrella,
Yeah.
then you should be good.
Yes, our umbrella policy with the Illinois Risk Management Association, IRMA.
Actually, if we're going to talk about insurance, which we don't want to muddy too many waters, but that it might, or maybe the auditors take a look at it, but an umbrella has to be worth something. And who assesses that on some kind of regular basis for all the different entities that the umbrella protects? It's just sort of a job. I don't expect you to answer that, but that's something to run past Drew or somebody at some point in time.
The coordinator for the village for IRMA is Sergeant Matt Smazinski over at the police department. So I can follow up with him. He would have the answer for that.
So Eric, this covers the 40,000 project that was in the capital that was last year into this year.
Yes.
And so when you add up all three items, you're just under the 40,000. Is that?
That is correct.
And where were other bids? Just out of curiosity, that for that project.
For our technology items, generally we just purchase those through CVI from HP, and we don't generally bid those out and get multiple bids.
Okay.
We have at times in the past for other things, just to be certain that we were getting the best possible deal, we've gone out and priced things and just kind of said, well, you know, maybe if we just go out and talk to some of the vendors directly and just go and pick it up ourselves, you know, we could swing a better deal on this. What we've pretty much always ended up with is that because CVI purchases lots and lots of equipment from HP, and they've got an agreement in place as a result, that they're pretty consistently able to negotiate better prices than we've been able to get trying to bid it out either to anyone else or trying to just purchase the stuff ourselves.
Okay. And CBI is who the village is. This is the people the village are using as well. That,
No, Village has a contract with a different
oh, okay.
different company. CVI's specialty is working with libraries.
Okay.
So we're one of I think about a dozen libraries here on the North Shore that they provide land management for.
Okay. Right.
So Eric, do you want to move ahead with this, or are you going to table it, or what's the next step here?
I would prefer to move ahead with it so that we can be certain that we are able to make the purchase in this fiscal year while we've got the funds allocated. So that is my recommendation. And they would be.
Bill and Matt, do you have any questions or concerns that you would prefer to wait until tomorrow night to go over these things?
I'm sort of similar to Matt. I'm not expert in any of the details of some of the equipment in there, but
I'm just thinking that if we go ahead with it, Eric, I know you're familiar with this Roxy representative. It might be, since we're starting a new committee and we're moving ahead and going to look at prices and so forth, might be great if she could at some point just meet briefly or correspond or carry on through Zoom with our committee, just to kind of familiarize and get to know details and nomenclature as we go into next year. So.
And I had sent her a query, a question to that effect. So yeah, that's definitely a meeting that we'll be setting up. Since in terms of our technology, they're kind of the big partner that we work with. So I think having the technology committee meet with Roxy and would be, a great good thing.
Yeah, and I do remember from conversations in the past, as far as these individual modules, we talked about, could we go here and there for different things and save money, and the effect of doing that and putting a glitch in the system or maintenance or whatever, it just isn't worth the cost of having CBI do it all. So, I'm very confident in them, and I know that in the next year, you guys will take a good look at what other alternatives we might be looking at. So,
yeah, no, I totally agree, Kathy. I think having one group be responsible, otherwise you're going to get finger pointing if we start to get too creative or too picky. So no, I totally agree.
And in particular, their specialty is the market that we are in. So we're not going to run afoul of someone trying to squeeze another industry's practices into our space. And we've been using them for a while. So both of those, give me comfort in moving forward with them. I do concur with Eric's sense of urgency around making sure that we have continued momentum, since this has been, I believe, pushed once already, right, Eric?
Yeah, we had planned to do it in the spring, but then there were so many unknowns at that point in the fiscal year with the budget, and we couldn't for months really do much in the library building because it was on lockdown. So we pushed it back about 10 months already.
For what it's worth, these prices are not going to go down. Maybe we could find them cheaper elsewhere, but we're not, I don't believe the committee would add, deferring to Bill, any additional value at this point. Well, at least with regard to this proposal, I would welcome talking with Roxy and getting her viewpoint.
Okay. Any additional questions? And I did find some shipping. So there's some shipping in there.
big $13.
Yeah, and it says over
It's
to
not
the,
bad.
it says do not. Not include taxes, shipping fees, or cables, or whatever.
Well, we do have cables listed, don't we?
Okay. So if there aren't any other questions for or discussion, I would look for a motion to accept the bids, $994 for a power distribution unit, the $13,965 for the switch replacement, and then the $23,975 for the virtual servers.
I so move.
I'll second.
I think that was Bill.
Yeah.
Okay, so motion from Cal, second from Bill. And since, again, it's an expenditure, we'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Brockett.
Aye.
Trustee Hayes.
Aye.
Trustee Heinzelman.
Aye.
Trustee Church.
Aye.
Trustee Meyerhoff.
Aye.
Trustee Stroh.
Aye.
Trustee Zowdy.
Aye.
And all three are approved. Excellent. Thank you, one and all. And we'll move on to the next item in the agenda, which is
Which is
the
what we
added one,
to.
the pay for the volunteer work.
Yes.
And I'll stop sharing for a moment here, since there's nothing in the packet related to this one, since it's an addition. So right now, getting the vaccine remains a challenge for persons who don't qualify for 1A or 1B. Library staff are categorized as 1C. So unless you're in a category, either by age or by health, that falls within 1A or 1B, library staff are lower priority. The village brought to my attention that they have gotten a number of their staff vaccinated by encouraging them to sign up as volunteers with the Lake County Health Department. That's volunteering to do non-medical tasks, helping with the vaccination process at the Lake County Fairgrounds. Being a volunteer and part of that process moves you up to a 1A category, and they give you a vaccine at the end of your first day of volunteering. So I followed up with the health department folks, and the commitment breaks down to 8 to 4 hours, depending on how you slice the shift, over 4 weeks. The Lake Bluff Library as an organization can't apply to volunteer. They don't have a system in place for organizations to volunteer. But in discussing it as a staff here, we do have a number of staff that have decided to work together as a volunteer group and apply as individuals. So we have staff that have gone through the application process. Correct me if I'm wrong, staff that is here, but I don't think anyone has been gone far enough into the volunteer process that they've been accepted yet.
The last I heard was that they had received so many applications for volunteers throughout the county that right now what they are doing is asking us to provide our general availability, and then they will follow up with us if an opening comes up. But right now it's kind of on a waiting list to volunteer to be vaccinated.
And what had happened, I think, was that I know that they were very short earlier in February. And then they went out and they made a lot of inquiries to try and get additional volunteers, to the extent that they were actually talking to a number of municipalities from what I have heard about, you know, municipalities loaning them some employees for this. And the net result was that they found a lot of people who were interested in doing some volunteering and helping out and getting the vaccine. So now the list got quite long. So it might end up being something where we may not even have anybody that ends up tapped for this. But if we do end up with a staff member or members that are contributing some time, I know that other area libraries who have staff who have reached out and applied to volunteer as well are encouraging their staff to sign up for this through Lake County by offering paid time for them to do it. Basically saying that if you sign up for it, any time that you work will be paid by the library. So it won't, you know, necessarily be volunteering out of your own time. We'll pay for you to do it. Highland Park is the big neighbor that we have in particular that's opted to go that route. So in discussing with staff, you know, what we would like to do, I determined that in talking with Janie, who's the head of the HR committee, that at minimum was at least worth a conversation. It's not something that we automatically already provide for within the personnel manual. We do have some things in there that are similar, paid leave to go donate blood, for instance. You know, so there is a little bit of that volunteering in there, but nothing on this scope or scale. So, you know, hence the intent to bring it up with the HR committee. And then since the HR committee was not able to find a time that worked for a quorum, to drop it into the agenda for tonight.
I have a question.
Fire away, Cal.
Okay, so library personnel are labeled as 1C.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, has anything been said officially about the time when 1Cs will be able to start being vaccinated?
Nothing concrete.
What I see online is March 29th.
Yeah,
Estimated.
that's end of March is once, that's what I'd heard.
Well, if they can start being
Is
vaccinated
it?
by the end of March, why don't we
For
even
Chicago.
Is that for Chicago?
Yeah, it's the city of Chicago that set a date.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
For
yes.
Chicago residents and workers, probably.
I got excited there for a moment.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for him to set a date. I would love to see a date. I wouldn't rule out March 29th. Lake County often has been following along with the dates that Chicago has set just because it's easier to be consistent. I know for the state as a whole that the governor has stated that while the president had indicated that he wanted it available to everybody, vaccination available to everybody by May 1st, that he felt that Illinois would be doing that sooner. But I don't know what sooner means in terms of when that would be.
The president wishes to have the supply vaccine available May 1st. He has not suggested that everyone will be vaccinated.
No, everyone won't be vaccinated by then, but he'll have the vaccine out there for everybody.
For all adults, 18 and over.
Yeah. And then anybody, not just 1A, 1B, 1C, can show up and get vaccinated. That would be pretty amazing if everybody was vaccinated by May 1st. I would be on board with that.
Yeah.
Let's get that done.
So what we're wondering is the volunteer expectation, did you say is 8 4-hour increments?
Yes.
Over a 4-week period of time.
Yeah. And it would be time that the staff would have been working anyway, doing other things at the library. So budgetarily, it would be a wash, where the library would see the drawdown would be that staff would be then, you know, say somebody working 40 hours was spending 8 hours a week at the vaccine center, that would be 8 hours less that they would be working on library stuff. So that would
Would
be
the
the
library
trade-off.
have a, and would the library have a cost to cover those hours at the library?
I don't believe so. I don't believe that we would see the number of people that have signed up to potentially volunteer is not such that it would be such a huge drain that would be a problem.
Because
I would
that's a
think a
consideration.
cost benefit analysis would be really tricky to do in this case, but
It is.
it seems to me that the more people we get vaccinated in the library, the better off we all are.
Yeah.
The other thing, the other thing I just wanted to point out really quickly is that they do ask about your availability in terms of days. And since our schedule is pretty consistent week to week about what days we're going to be working. Like, for example, I'm at the library all day on Mondays. I just wouldn't check off that I'm available on Mondays. And if they said, hey, you can come to work on, or you can come do this on a Monday, I probably would just say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not available that day. So they do give you some choice.
Is there any liability to having employees off-site and, especially in this COVID environment? Because I know, like from my work, they're talking about if employees become incapacitated as a result of the vaccine, and it can go on from there. And so I wouldn't anticipate that, but like that's where it gets hairy. Like I'm all in favor of employees doing this, and I think it's a really cool way that they can volunteer and get in line. I just don't know if we want to have our employment stamped on it, and then it becomes a potential liability.
Sure. That's an excellent point.
I think that's a good point. There's, of course, the various waivers that would be involved on the Lake County side, which probably wouldn't do a ton to indemnify us. We could add our own indemnification, a waiver that we would ask staff to sign, but I can almost guarantee that the full response from our attorney is likely to be, we're all in new territory here. Is there risk? Absolutely. And I can't tell you how much it is because nobody's sued anybody yet. I've gotten that answer for a lot of things over the last year. So that is almost certainly
that's where it's hard.
He would tell me on this. And that does make it a challenge. And that is a very good point. And an item worth considering.
Is there any type of like in lieu of paying volunteer time, could we do like a special award? Is there something we could do after the fact?
Or comp time, in exchange time of some kind. So that to Tricia's point, they're not being compensated by the library, but we can exchange the time off in some way to encourage it. I don't know, it's just.
That could be done in pretty straightforward fashion. Additional personal days could be provided in exchange for the time volunteering.
That's a good idea, Kathy.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, would that impact, Eric, the library in a negative fashion if you had to? And we could probably put a time limit on this so that and extend it as necessary. But and perhaps no more than that requirement by Lake County. So I don't know. I mean, we could tweak it so that it's a good fit for the library.
Yeah, no, that works. And it wouldn't have, you know, negative impact. Certainly wouldn't budgetarily. You're either working or you're taking, you know, time, whether it's sick vacation or personal time. You're not pulling from both pots at once. So it's not going to have any additional cost there, and, you know,
Well, I
won't
think
draw us
we'd
down
have
as
to-
far as availability.
I think we have to phrase it and that it's, the understanding is that the employee would be using their time to volunteer for an important community service, and the library will comp them the time, their time, so that it is not a library cost or responsibility or liability.
Mhm.
Um,
I think what we might do would be to taking a look at it in particular from the perspective of reimbursing with comp or personal time. I can draw up a specific proposal, and then the HR committee, which needs to meet anyway in a week or two, could take a look at that. With planning to do a reimbursement, because it's after the fact, it's reimbursing for, rather than, you know, employees putting the time down as they're working it. That doesn't become quite as time sensitive. So I think what we could do then is I draw something up, and then it goes to the HR committee. And since there's general approval from the library board, as long as whatever's drawn up is in keeping with what the board has discussed this evening, then I think we would be good to go.
Does that work for the staff?
Well, it works for this staff member. Other staff members, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not sure if who all has applied to volunteer, but for me, I know one of the concerns that I had was that the volunteering was or they asked for a fairly significant time commitment. It wasn't just like a one and done type of thing. If it were just that, then I don't think it would be as big of an issue. But since they're asking for multiple days worth, I think that would be fine. My biggest concern was having to deplete my my accrued PTO when there are other things that I know later on in the year I'm going to have to use the PTO for. So that was a concern of mine. So compensation, I think, is would be more than fair.
Thumbs up from Eliza.
Yeah, my statement sounds very similar to that.
Good deal.
Well, good luck, you guys. That's very noteworthy for you to do that. Once they open up one and see, they're gonna be, the numbers are huge. So they're gonna be, even if they have a lot of volunteers now, I foresee this going on for quite some time. So
yeah, it's a big operation. There's no denying that. Okay. So I think that wraps up the volunteer work discussion.
Excellent. That's a good outcome. I like it.
Indeed. That was a really good suggestion, Kathy.
well, Trish as well for raising the red flag, which we might have overlooked. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. That brings us up to old business, of which we have two. The first one that we touched on earlier in the Finance Committee report is the final reading of the budget for fiscal year 2021-2022. The Finance Committee met and voted to recommend approval at their last meeting. Rather than distributing again the full explanation of each line, what I provided for you in the packet this evening is what I'm referring to as a change log. It basically describes the 5 lines that changed from that original draft in January and why they changed. So let me bring that up here. And first item that changed a bit was the estimate on the building maintenance. So the reason that changed, which was a decrease of 3,000 from 35,000 to 32,000, was that part of the funds there each year are earmarked for a deep clean of the building. Well, there wasn't anybody in the building in May of 2020, so we held off on doing our deep clean, which we usually do in May at the start of the fiscal year. And we're ending up looking to do it as we move towards a more complete reopen here in April. So since we're doing it in April of 2021, it would be overkill to do it a month later again. Instead, we'll get back on our normal schedule, which means the next one will happen in May of 2022. So we don't need to budget for it, in short, for the next fiscal year. Miscellaneous expenditures, decreased that slightly. In reviewing costs in previous years, we've trended way down as far as what we've had there in miscellaneous as well as contingency. We have both with the Board of Trustees as well as working with our auditors tried to de-emphasize expenses that get categorized in those, and tried whenever possible to have expenses in a particular category. Exterior building projects, this is the one that saw an increase of $6,000 from $1,000 to $7,000. This does represent a recognition of a additional project that we'll need to tackle with our HVAC system in the next fiscal year. So the problem is a flue for the wood building in the HVAC system there. It was installed incorrectly when construction happened. It's been an issue that has been a known concern for a number of years, and there was some work that was done to basically get us by with the strange design and installation of the system, such as previously it had caused problems with water getting in and coming down through the director's ceiling. But we put some drip pans up there, and that, more or less took care of that. So it's been something that we've been living with. It's gotten to be more of a problem in the last year or two as the system has aged. Specifically, it has begun causing a strong, foul, rotten eggs odor to occasionally permeate the lobby and the director's office. And we actually, when it started occurring somewhat regularly and strongly, had the gas company out a number of times, wanted to make sure there wasn't a problem. Then we had identified what the problem was and had tried to create a workaround with our HVAC maintenance folks, but the workaround boiled down to running the HVAC less and at a much lower level. And the problem there was that things were generally okay until we got to really cold weather this past winter. And then things definitely weren't working because we needed the heat to be, we needed the HVAC system to be running at a much higher level. Things got quite chilly. So I've got a quote from Murphy and Miller to fix the problem. So I've got that in hand to base what the expenses will be. And I am going to be discussing this with the Building and Grounds Committee. I do feel it's something that we need to remedy. It doesn't happen beyond a few times a month, but I know from experience that it is not a positive. It is not a positive first impression for the members of the community that walk into the bad smell. And I'm confident that the other staff members that are present can attest to that as well. And then the last line, the fifth line, was contingency, same as miscellaneous expense. In reviewing the expenses there, particularly since we, for transparency, broke out the funds to be set aside for reserve as its own line. We've really de-emphasized that and tried to avoid, whenever possible, putting expenses there.
So Eric, if I can jump in
Mhm.
here, because I'm looking at this and based on the finance committee meeting last week, when we kind of refreshed our memory on this grant, which I give credit to Bill for recalling. The grant was awarded to the library for kind of like building an infrastructure, and you can draw on the grant when you are having these projects. So we were happy to remember that, and this flu project, I think, would definitely qualify. And we don't know if the funds are available. I mean, that's the issue. But if indeed they're ready, they can be drawable, we can at least have the documentation ready for this flu, and also the parking lot would be another. So we all have to be very mindful of that. And I'm also wondering about, and I don't have the expertise here, the CDI quote, if there's any actual infrastructure in there that might apply as well. So I think
I would have to, yeah.
We all have to be really mindful of this opportunity. So as we're spending money, if we can, create a log of expenditures for which we could be reimbursed, that would be very, very desirable. Otherwise, this grant just keeps floating on and on. So, our building is getting older, and as we do things to it, if we can use this as a draw, it would be very, very beneficial. And if it is, if we get good news from our senator, our local senator, keep in mind opportunities and draw on it accordingly.
Yes, definitely. And if that is what we opt to do, then then looking the budget, we could, for the money that we've budgeted for those other projects, we could, expend on other things next fiscal year, or just leave it as funds that would be added to reserve. We'd be under no obligation to do anything in particular with those funds by budgeting for them now, if we didn't expend them then. Any additional questions, comments? If not, I would look for a motion to approve.
I so move.
And a second?
I'll second.
Motion from Cal, second from Bill. And another vote involving some cash. So we'll do a roll call vote again. Trustee Brockett.
Aye.
Trustee Hayes.
Pardon me, I'm really sorry here.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
What exactly are we approving?
Yes, sorry. We are approving the budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022 with revenue and expenses to total $1,047,140.
All right. I knew we were doing something. I just wasn't sure what it was.
Where's that?
No,
figure?
I got ahead of myself again. It's getting to be, that's twice in one meeting. Thank you
Where's
for
that
catching me,
figure?
Kathy. Beg your pardon?
Is it the 1,222,717? Is that what we're looking at? No.
No, it's this number here. It's the
Oh,
1,047,140.
That would be why it says FY 121-22 at the top of the column. Okay.
Okay, let's try that again. Kel, would you like to so motion?
Yes, do I have to name the numbers or can I just? Move?
You can just say, I will motion what was read.
Okay, I so move that we go with what was read.
And I will second.
Okay.
Well done.
Well done, everyone.
Okay. Trustee Brockett,
Aye.
Trustee Hayes,
Aye.
Trustee Heinzelman. John?
He's on mute. John, you're on mute.
Aye. Sorry.
No worries. Trustee Church,
Aye.
Trustee Meyerhoff,
Aye.
Trustee Stroh,
Aye.
Trustee Zowdy.
Aye.
Motion carries. Budget for the coming fiscal year is approved.
You know, Eric, Kathy makes a great point with regard to the CVI. You know, I know I'm not sure how the timing lines up here, but that type of equipment is absolutely, well, I don't still learning the accounting for the library, but is typically CapEx.
Yeah. No. I'm 100% on board, and it's definitely how it's going to go down. You know, everywhere from how we expend it all the way through the auditors. My only uncertainty is with the state of Illinois, since I know that they have their own definition and they're kind of the gatekeepers as far as the funds. And the way that they've got it set up with the Rebuild Illinois funds is I know when they are available, we'll need to essentially submit to them, you know, the invoice and the proposal for reimbursement, and then they'll send us the funds and the amount that we paid to cover a project. So,
Hey, Eric, why don't you get the details? It's a good refresher for all of us, but make sure Bill and Matt take a look at that. Any other trustees are interested, because you know, this is key to our financing, and with current, you know, with new legislation and aid to states and so forth, who knows what opportunities we may be able to get you know, get going with. So let's be very sharp to this.
Sounds good. Okay. And then the last item of business that we have on the agenda this evening is the update on the director's evaluation. So we are up to this portion here, which is feedback has been gathered and received, and work begins on creating the preliminary draft. And part of that is that in the next week or two, the HR committee is going to be meeting, and we'll be discussing the feedback and kind of framing what will be going into that initial draft. So I had sent out a doodle poll about half hour before the meeting, actually, with a list of dates and times for next week, looking at setting up an HR committee meeting. So then the remaining steps would be finalizing the draft with the HR committee, going through the revisions process early April, sometime reviewing the draft with the director, and then, you know, at the April board meeting would be it would be reviewed or discussed as necessary with the full board. I believe usually the draft is sent out between the meetings as well, so that trustees can review it individually, and if they have any questions or comments at that point, they can send those to the person who is gathering all the information together and creating the review. So for tonight, then the the process really just calls for updating as far as the progress. There isn't anything more substantive than that. Kathy, Janie, Trish, is there anything you want to jump in and add as far as the process? Trish, I know you said.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody again for their participation. The HR committee has received the dashboard of the results. So we've gotten the staff results and the trustee results, and then we're going to work through, compiling all that, I believe, at our next meeting. So thanks again, and we really appreciate the feedback.
Definitely, thank you.
Yes, and I'll take an opportunity again. You really did a nice job with the survey, Trish. I know you made use of the some online interfaces for that and programs, but doesn't take away from the fact that it was nicely done and that you jumped in and volunteered to put that together.
It was also
Absolutely.
easy to
Thank you.
use. That was nice.
Good, good, great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on the review process? Otherwise, I think we're ready to jump to director's report and move towards the end of the meeting.
Yeah, let's jump.
All right. Couple items to highlight very quickly with the director's report. So as noted above, when we did the resolution of thanks for Carol, Carol is stepping back from her full-time position. She's moving into a part-time position. At the same time, we do have a staff member then that is moving into that full-time position, which is Anna Fifehouse, who is a very well-qualified staff member that we are fortunate to have. I know that Anna is planning to head back to school to get her master's degree in library science within the next year or two, and she's already proven to be a extremely efficient, very capable member of our staff. So you've probably seen Anna most recently when she's been at board meetings to talk about the statistics. But Anna is also assisted at times with some of our programming and has a lot of good ideas and is working with Carol as far as making that transition. So that's an update that I wanted to highlight on that one. Only other item that I would add is, as I touched on earlier, in the news right now, the COVID cases, after plateauing for a little bit, have really come down in the last 5 or 6 days. And what I am hearing from the state of Illinois is that they are looking at creating a new roadmap, basically to map out the process of fully reopening. What it will look like in terms of stepping down from current mitigation to a full return to normal. So I'm staying tuned on that. I would guess, and it kind of sounds like we'll probably hear an announcement from the governor on that sometime this week. And as part of that, we are continuing to move towards fuller access at the library as well. So we know that patrons to varying degrees are anxious. We've had some folks that were a little bit more anxious than we've had in some previous months within the last week or two, but I think everybody is abundantly ready for a return to normalcy. I know I certainly am. So that is all I have got for the director's report. So unless there is anything else that anyone would like to add as far as an agenda item or bring in for discussion, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Gotta give people a solid couple seconds there to jump in, Cal. But okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Second from Kathy. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 8:52 p.m. Good meeting, everybody. We covered a lot of
Yes.
territory tonight.
Thank you
you.
all.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Be well.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Night, everyone.
Have a good night.